Welcome to Beyond Flow. My name is Tammy. This is Maria, and we are your hosts. Grateful to have you here with us again for another episode. Just want to remind you to please share with your friends, family, anybody you think that might enjoy participating in this podcast. And we hope to expand, and we're really excited and grateful for your support in that process. So we're going to delve into a subject that we both have felt compelled to want to talk about, and it actually has to do with a series that's impacted us both in understanding love and unconditional love and a lot of other things that I think the world really needs right now, and it's coming from a series called The Chosen. We'll be back to talk about it. So, The Chosen, directed by Dallas Jenkins. You can find the series pretty much anywhere you stream, but I know Prime has it, YouTube has it, Apple has it. They actually have their own app
Yes.
called The Chosen. So feel free to look it up if you find this interesting. So, The Chosen.
Before we started, he was setting up the cameras, and one thing that came to me is that I wanted to ask you what made you want to share, because we both can watch something and have a different understanding, feeling, being inspired by different reasons and seasons, because there's 5 seasons of The Chosen.
Oh my gosh, there's actually, that's right.
So, well, first of all, before we start, we should tell a little bit of what The Chosen it's about, and then after that, I wanted to, if you can say what makes you want to talk about it,
Okay.
and
Sure.
enough that to make it a part of the podcast.
Sure. So The Chosen is basically a series that is taking you through the journey of Jesus's life once he is going to begin to select the disciples, and it takes you on a journey of understanding and learning who each of them were, and then all of the other things that happen along that journey and all the other people involved, and those relationships, the pain and difficulties they went through, but it's done in such a unique way to me. It's historical type of program, but it's done with phenomenal acting.
The writing is excellent.
It's like your jaw's on the ground, and
it's almost like he was chosen.
Yeah,
to do the.
We always say that it's like he had to have been chosen, had to have been cosmically designed, and I think that the impact that it has is it's one of those shows and series that, though it's about Jesus and it seems like, okay, well, that's only going to appeal to people that connect with Jesus or Christians or that kind of thing. But I think that one of the reasons I think talking about it and something that was so impactful is that I think everybody should watch this series. It doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe. Believe in God, don't believe in God. Believe, feel a connection to Jesus, don't feel a connection to Jesus. I think the overall message that comes is something that we can step back and reacquaint ourselves with. Who was he, and what was his purpose amongst obviously many things, but even for the regular person. And I think the love that Jesus is expressed is something that we're missing in today's more, I guess, conservative, nationalistic, conservative current sort of atmosphere that we have centered around the spiritual teachings of a soul that was unbelievable.
Because I think it's not so much spiritual teachings, it's more the religious and the controlling part of the narrative, and to serve something that it has absolutely nothing to do with our soul.
I think this series takes you back to your soul.
Yes.
It takes you back.
It takes you back, and because the teachings of Jesus, the Christ, it's something that it's eternal. It's not just, I think that's why it's been 2,000 years, and we can still, in every aspect of our lives, we can open the book and read something, and then it's the consciousness that goes into our subconscious and to every part of our soul that can connect to that teaching.
Yeah, and I think that the Bible itself is maybe not the easiest book to read for everybody, because it is so coded at times, and there really is a real mystical aspect to things that are. I feel like this series brought out a lot of clarity and understanding in some of the things that are like, parables and stories. And it's just, it knocks you off your feet how relatable he was able to, with
Capture.
Obviously great acting and great writing, but capture, the actual essence of these people and their unbelievable story in wanting to serve humanity, not harm it.
I like the word. It's one of those words that I like, mystical. And I like that you use that word to explain or to refer to us in the Bible, because I've always said the Bible is one of the most mystical books ever. It's where you have seers, is where you can actually read about prophecy and healers and teachers
and astrology
and astrologers and incense and healing by faith. And so, I mean, to me, it doesn't get more mystical. So it's kind of and then relating it back to the Chosen. I think he does an incredible, amazing. I am very critical when it comes to, a lot of things, but that's
you
separate.
are a Virgo.
Yes, but in this particular, like I honestly feel, and this is also a teaching where when you watch or when you read something, you can actually feel the consciousness of the people making it.
Yeah.
And I have to say that the guy, I forget his name, is Jonathan, the guy that plays Jesus.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can look for it, but
his last name.
it's, and when there's another, I think it's on Apple where he did a show, or
it's like I called Jonathan and Jesus or something like that.
Yeah, and he talks
like
about
the behind the scenes, like
behind
his
the
life.
scenes, what he was going through, what he was experiencing before and after. So, but he's like, you feel the consciousness that he was really in touch with Christ to make this series so touching. I don't think there's one episode that I don't cry. And sometimes it's not I cry because I do feel the pain. I do feel the or when there's a miracle that happens in one of the episodes, it's like you feel, you become one with the series, because we're not separate from it.
Yeah, and I think there's a concept of, that it gets repeated a lot. It's, biblically, that Jesus was the Son of Man and also the Son of God. And, I think this series helps you, sort of connect to that on like a real tangible way. He was a man. And I think that we forget to understand that we can relate to him as a human being. He chose to return to this earth in that form for a huge purpose. Mm-hmm. But he was in the flesh. He was a human being. And so, as an actor, it's possible to connect to that aspect of him. The Son of God aspect seems so untouchable to unreachable and like humility gets in the way of even beginning to feel what that is. But being a man, he was, and it's like such an amazing concept.
And also, what I love about this series that it's very different, because since I was a little, I always loved movies about Jesus,
biblical movies. Yeah.
What I think this is so special, and I really truly recommend anyone to watch or everyone to watch, it's because it's not just about Jesus, but it's about the apostles, the disciples of Jesus. Mm-hmm. And with that, I also I wrote something before coming, before starting the podcast, and then I said, I don't know if I want to read it or if I just want to go into a place of just speaking from what I feel that the chosen. Mm-hmm. But one thing I want to say before I read this is that one of the main messages, and I think we can all relate to it, is that the disciples were very flawed. And when you watch the series, you get to see the humanity in them, mm-hmm. as much as the humanity in Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
And that they weren't, because of their desire to, now it's the part that I really I get excited, because their desire to be better and to transform is what made them saints. Mm. So, but they needed not only the desire, also the magnetism of Jesus they felt, but also that they needed a guru, they needed a master, they needed a rabbi to guide them.
Yeah.
Which the master part was Jesus, because he was one with God. Mm-hmm. So they connected with that oneness.
Yeah.
Through Jesus. That's how they became saints. And also how we all need a master. And what is a master? Someone that has reformed themselves, that they have mastered themselves, that they have gone to that place of self-realization.
Yeah.
So when you watch where they were from before, it's almost like before Jesus, after Jesus. Mm-hmm. It's like before Jesus,
before they met him,
and after they met him.
Yeah.
And we are that too. That's why when we watch it, it's not separate, because I can relate to probably all of them.
Yeah, in one way or another, absolutely.
Like Thomas, doubting Thomas. In what moment we don't doubt, mm-hmm. right? How did he get to the moment of not doubting anymore, or anger with Peter? Right. There's there's so many things that he was able to put into, and I'm talking about now the series, that he was able to put it in a way where you can actually understand the humanity, and also as you start watching it, the part where they become really the transformation to saints.
Yeah.
Because you're not a saint just when you pass or when you leave this physical world.
Right.
So that's one part that I really loved.
Yeah.
Me too. So
there's a part that's one of my, when I was thinking about what are the scenes, it's like every single episode there's going to be a scene that impacts you deeply, but when you think back after 4 seasons, and the fifth is the one that's coming, right?
No, I think the
we've
fifth, the sixth.
The sixth is coming. Okay. But there's a scene that is related to each of them, and we know what's called the Beatitudes, which is these different rules or things to live by, and there's a scene where Jesus and Matthew are preparing for this speech that Jesus is going to give. Yeah, the sermon. And he tells Jesus, Matthew's like, what is this? What are we doing? What's this for? And he tells him that it's a map. I'm going to be giving a map for people to find God. I'm going to be giving a map. And he says, like, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, right? Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And it's a bunch of statements like that. A lot of people probably know those. But as he's explaining each one, the scene goes to each disciple, and it's almost as though Jesus is describing kind of like each one of them and what their sort of hardship was in this lifetime, and that they are using that hardship to find God. And so in the purpose of the speech, it's kind of like, if you want to find God, find those people. And it's like a representation. Obviously, the 12 disciples went out into the world to teach the gospel, to bring people to a higher consciousness. But it's like, I never really understood until I saw the series what the Beatitudes really, like, deeper emotionally felt. So it's a really impacting scene. I think it's the finale of the second season. So it's done so well.
Yeah,
it's again about them,
And I remember that scene because I remember there's a moment where Jesus turns, because Matthew is writing the book of Matthew, right, and he's writing what Jesus is saying, and then he turns to Matthew, and he says, "And blessed are the ones that will be persecuted."
Yeah.
But the reward, I mean, please don't quote me, but will be greater in heaven. And that's when Matthew knows that's going to be me.
Yeah.
And to continue being his disciple, knowing that, I think that's when the series...
Yeah.
Because the series is not something that you can change. It is the true story.
Yeah.
And that leads me to how the series began. I remember, just very quick, like, I remember my mom was telling me all the time, like, you should watch The Chosen. And I'm like, I don't really know. Like, then I got COVID and I had nothing to do, and I'm like, okay, let me just watch The Chosen. And the first episode was very, like, confusing. Like, I don't understand too well
who's who and what's what.
Who,
yeah.
So I always tell people, when I recommend to watch The Chosen, give it 3 episodes, because everything it starts coming together in a way where your soul also starts expanding.
Yeah.
And the first episode is, I mean, it has to be said because there's a lot of spoilers because we're talking about it, right? Yeah. But it's how Jesus meets Mary Magdalene. And it's such a powerful episode, and how what's really, today I just realized that the most impactful episodes for me were with women.
Yep.
So I want to say the first one was how he meets Mary Magdalene.
Yeah.
And when he says to her, "You are mine."
Yeah.
And I call you by your name.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, for me, a moment of that Jesus sees, because obviously
He sees her.
sees
Yeah,
her
it's beyond
beyond
the
what
limitations.
her limitations and everything that she was experiencing, which she
Yeah.
had like, I don't know, like 7 demons in her, like,
Yeah.
you know. So, and then
It's so true. There's the feminine,
it's
the feminine connections in this.
energy.
It's that's something that I don't think we typically understand in the church these days, you know, or in the, you know, more conservative approach to understanding these stories, because there's also a scene, the woman at the well,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And he comes to her, and she's like been shunned by everybody, and nobody wants to be around her. She's, you know, had like 5 husbands, and, you know, all these quote unquote, you know, sinful life, and she's unclean and all these things. And so he's sitting at the well, and through the course of the conversation, he's able to show her who he is,
It's the
through
first
what
time,
he knows.
it's the first time, the first time Jesus reveals himself as the Messiah,
As the Messiah
was
it's to a woman,
woman.
and it's to her, and the love that you feel that he has for her, the compassion, the understanding, and he doesn't treat her like she's something less than. It's like she's seen for the first time, and she gets so, and she's like very like, who are you, and leave me alone, and very untrusting and pessimistic about the whole thing. But then she walks away like so happy and so excited, and she just runs to want to tell the world that she's met the Messiah. And it's really like, she's very important.
You know,
You know?
the second coming of Christ, the resurrection of Christ within you. This is from Paramahansa Yogananda, and this is an incredible book.
Two part,
2
volumes, right?
2
Yeah.
volumes. This is the first one, and I did open earlier because I wanted to talk about the woman of Samaria and what Yogananda talks and what he says about this.
Okay.
So he says, the meeting of Jesus with the woman of Samaria was not a chance encounter, but a divinely devised guru-disciple reunion. The Samaritan woman was a morally lost disciple of a previous incarnation whom Jesus wanted to redeem. As with many great masters, Jesus had among his following a number of disciples from past lives.
Wow.
So, I mean, this goes and goes and goes. But one of the things that when you said that is, it reminded me of, you know, I wanted to read this because we are so limited in understanding the whole truth about Jesus.
Yeah.
It's not just that it was a woman, that it was just sitting there. No, it was, first of all, the fact that he revealed himself to a woman that these days and back then, you know, it wasn't worthy of that.
Right.
And how many times, how can we relate something that happened thousands of years ago to today's understanding that your guru will find you over and over and over again until you are completely liberated. And I was reading also, like, what's the difference between a student and a disciple? So a student is, it's someone that, it's a soul that will take information.
Okay.
And the disciple is completely open to surrender for complete transformation.
Wow. It's not just information.
It's
not
not
just learning.
It's just not learning.
Yeah.
It's understanding that you want to transform.
Yeah. Wow. Powerful.
So that's something that, you know.
So we were talking about Mary, right? Mary Magdalene, your first example. And I was also thinking about her when I knew we were going to talk about this. And, I think that's another aspect of this series that really can help you see things differently. And I feel like that applies to every aspect of the limitations that the conservative approach to understanding the Bible has, the extremist situation. But, Mary Magdalene, from the limited approach, or what I grew up learning the Bible and learning things from a very, in some ways amazing ways, but in other ways, limited ways that it happens a lot. But she was basically, her identity as a former prostitute, that she was morally bad and transformed, and that Jesus was emotionally distant from her, that he held a hierarchical place. That's kind of like the sum of her significance in The Chosen, and how I feel this sort of bigger cosmic understanding is that she's a devoted disciple. She holds the same as relevant as the 12 men. She's a devoted disciple in the inner circle. She is in the inner circle of Jesus's followings. She's not defined by her past. She's defined by the journey that she's taking forward, just like the disciples. They all weren't so great when they met him, but who they are was about the journey that they were taking in that transformation. That's how we know them. She's a strong presence even with her struggles, because she always goes back to faith. She always turns back to faith. And her relationship with Jesus is a close and trusting one. It's rooted in safety, love, and spiritual recognition. He recognizes her and who she is. It's not just a story of a sinner that's saved. She walked with Jesus. She was trusted by all of them. She was deep and emotionally connected, and she was a great friend. None of that I understood as a young person in who she was. And I feel like and the series goes on and on and on. Her involvement is and there's a part in the last.
And not to, but you said something that it's actually, it led me to think also that Jesus, the first one to reveal himself after the resurrection, was to Mary Magdalene.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it's
she's a number one disciple,
and she was the number one disciple,
mm-hmm.
which also leads me to, there's a book these two are from J.J. Hurtak.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to maybe we need to do just a podcast about Mary Magdalene, because it's so incredible.
Yeah.
So after this one is called The Gospel of Mary. And this one is the Pistis Sophia,
mm-hmm.
which is also, the Pistis Sophia is it's the teachings of Jesus after resurrection. So, and it says how many times he did said some, how many times he showed to Andrew, to James, different
mm-hmm.
ones, not to all of them. But I know that Mary Magdalene, I think it was 83 times that she was the highest one.
Wow.
That he gave. Yeah. And the Pistis Sophia, it's an incredible book if you want to learn more about the teachings of Jesus after the resurrection. And let me just say this very quick so people can understand a little bit more, and I'm not going to go too off from the subject, but I think it's related. So the Pistis Sophia, which is faith of wisdom. That's what it actually means. It's a teaching given to the disciples of Jesus after the resurrection of the one who is the Christ, designated by. Then it goes into, it's very deep. But it also talks about Mary Magdalene and the teachings that, and I think there's a part on The Chosen where it shows Mary Magdalene,
her writings.
The writings.
That's such a great scene.
It's so, and with Matthew actually, and but a lot of those writings were destroyed. Some of them were changed. Some of them were hidden, and then the Gospel of Mary, which is something that we don't ever. It's not in the Bible. So what do you mean the Gospel of Mary?
Right.
You know. So I think that once you watch The Chosen, I think it takes you to the place to understand why Mary Magdalene was so incredible. Yeah. And I don't know if you have something to.
Well, I just feel, the series stands on its own. There's so much. We just both enjoyed it so much, and but I think the reason I think that it's something that was worth discussing or worth bringing up here with Beyond Flow is that, we are living in a time where the name of Jesus or the name of God is being used in this country under the concept of Christianity, or especially Christian nationalism, that's so far off from what Jesus's purpose was here, and what we should be taking from and living by and living as an example of. And I think if we can find our way back to our heart, find our way back to unconditional love, inclusiveness. Jesus was always including those that were outcasts, those that were supposedly not allowed to sit at the table. All he ever did was go against those rules and those norms to bring inclusiveness. And I think the number one thing that a nationalistic approach does is exclude. Yeah. And that can be its own political thing. But the problem with it, I feel here, is that Christianity is being used as the backbone to that concept. And that has zero to do with the biblical teachings. And I think we need to stand up and recognize that and get back to living,
the core.
Yes, and living in a world that we are proud of, in a world that is inclusive and loving, and that's our ticket to expansion
and transformation.
Not power and separation and dominance. It's not the teachings.
It's not the teachings at all. Well said. I'm gonna close with another writing from Paramahansa Yogananda. And he says, Jesus meets his first disciples. When great masters come on earth, they bring with them select advanced disciples from past incarnations to help them in their mission and to further the preparations of those disciples for liberation. So that alone is... Through association with the Master, receiving his guidance and the higher teachings of soul freedom, and having their spirituality tested in the amplified science of life in the Earth School, while also assisting the Guru in his God-ordained work, such disciples and their Guru fulfill in the highest way the divine covenant of the Guru-disciple relationship.
Wow.
Which I think... the last thing I want to say is what you said. The teachings of Jesus is here. He came here to teach us, to liberate us, to have freedom from this
illusion,
Earth School. And if we can get that, then I think, we can live in a very different, more loving, kinder
reality.
Yeah. So watch The Chosen.
Yeah.
I think it's
worth it.
It's worth
it. Really
it's
good.
life transforming. It definitely transformed me. And every person I have told them that I have to watch
has
it
loved it.
Has loved it.
From every different type of religious background or not religious background.
Absolutely.
It's that good.
So, yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank
Appreciate you.
And God bless.
God bless.